first rail goes at 33.6.
Half of 33.6.
0.6, so a little over half. Well, it's 7.
Good. Yeah. Now you want those up one more layer, or just check?
Jack,
I think I had it that good.
can you describe what you've done already?
We've assembled the scaffolding. That's about it.
Okay. And what are these tubes for?
We're going to use it to measure the roof and mark where the array goes on. We can't get a measuring tape all the way to the top, so the conduits are substitute.
Yeah.
So today, you guys are just gonna create the holders for the panels.
We're not even I don't think we'll get that far. We'll get a couple of rails on maybe, if we're lucky, before the rain comes in.
They had to put everything online, recorded, and then exams, basically they had to like release it on one day and then give you like a 3-day window to like take it at some point in there.
Okay guys, here's what's next. This is a different brand, but the people who first started this stuff was called S5 as the corporation. And this is a different brand of the same basic thing, simple block. So this is going to sit in on top of the rail, and it's got some ridge here, plus these screws that are going to dimple the rail but not burst it. And that's rated to hold the panel and all the snow load on the roof, and us, because we'll be depending on these to stand on too. So it has 2 screws. It requires a hex key to screw the hex bolt screw in. So we've got a few of them so we can have multiple people with screw guns. When you put it on, the top of the seam needs to be against the top of the ridge, the break here, right? So it needs to be all the way down. That means this should not be touching the actual flat part of the roof. To screw it on, you start at the upper screw to tension, to torque, then the bottom one, then come back to the top one, and then again the bottom one. So it's got to be 4 different actions.
When you say top and bottom, what do you mean?
Upper and lower.
Okay.
So it'll be mounted. So these seams are not square. They're orthogonal. I don't know. They're kind of triangles. So the screws. Make sure I'm doing this right. Let me find my clipboard. So that's on the west side of the seam. So we'll actually be mounting the screws screwing from this side.
So all the screws have to be on that side.
Right.
What are we torquing them down to? Or just tight?
Technically it's 120 inch-pounds.
Oh.
But any impact wrench will do. Don't use a screw gun, use an impact wrench. Okay, the screw gun doesn't have a consistent torque. It changes as the battery runs down. Now I've marked where the clamps go, starting from this end. I didn't get all the way across, but it's 64 inches from the bottom of the roof line.
Is the marking for the top of that or the bottom of that?
It doesn't matter that much.
Well, you want them both the same. You want it all the same.
That's true. You do want them all the same.
So you got to say either that's the top or the bottom.
Yep. So let's go with the bottom.
The bottom is 64 inches.
The bottom of this is 64 inches from the edge of the roof.
And that's marked to the line.
It's roughly marked. It's not accurately marked, so remeasure it before you screw it down. Yep, do one on each end and then run a string. That's a great idea, Keith.
Yeah.
So let's get one on each end. The seams that they need to be marked are marked. And then we want one of these in every third seam. So we definitely want the two end seams, and then it won't come out exactly, but we need one on every third seam from there. And I started at this end marking clamp here, clamp here, clamp here. I didn't finish all the way across though.
All right.
Okay?
Didn't stand right underneath it.
Yeah, don't stand under the scaffold.
That's every two. You marked one for every other one.
Well, I started, I think, at number 2. But then it goes every third from there.
Okay, so we will.
Yeah. Oh, okay, they're still.
I'm gonna leave that just semi-fresh for you to do the final.
Okay, I think that's all she wrote.
Well, that looks like it's a little. Look at it.
Hey, Eric, somewhere about.
Is the roof hot?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Is that it?
I don't mind it. Every other one.
Yeah, so the splice bars going like this. In that box there were some screws. Yep.
Self-tappers.
So we need to put in one screw on one side down here. And then up there, when we'll put the other one in, we'll screw it in this other side.
Can we do that with a screw gun or is
Yep,
it a ratchet?
screw gun works great for that.
You guys are doing.
Can you guys describe what you're gonna be doing right now?
We're going to take a bolt and put it through the short end of the L foot. And then on each of those clamps, there's a screw hole that it screws into. The short side, the long side faces uphill. And we'll go up against this basically. Okay? So in each one of those clamps, we need to put this in now. So we need a driver, a hex bolt driver that matches this, whatever it is.
So what's your name and what do you do?
Eli Harvey. Right now I'm a student going to Penn State for energy engineering, and I'm here in Homestead for the summer.
And you're helping us build this solar system. For how long have you been volunteering with Seeds?
I've been volunteering for Seeds, since I was in high school. Obviously, I've had to do it a little less since going off to college, but it's always been like a really neat opportunity to have an organization like Seeds right in my hometown that kind of focuses on spreading sustainable education and awareness.
And that's your passion,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Sustainability, renewable energy. Well, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
of course.
volunteering your time and energy.
Yeah, of course.
George.
That ratchet's still down there by Gary. We can just hand it on over.
Go up. You got that wrench? Well, we can slide these brackets a little bit. We can slide the brackets. Slide it up a little.
I do have that wrench.
All right.
Here.
Do you have the? Oh, yeah, you got it. This one needs to come up a little bit too.
That's the problem when you're at the end. You want to make sure everything's actually.
That better?
Yeah, that's great.
Yep, these are the rails as far as I understand.
And then you guys are just gonna
And then
keep
you go
putting them.
stand on this rail to
That
put the
bottom
next
one
rail.
needs to go
Okay.
up too, huh?
And then after that is the optimizers. I shouldn't ask you anything. Jim, can you quickly describe what you're doing, please?
Well, I'm building steps so that we can get between the rails safely. The gap between the rails is too big for a one-man step, so these various kinds of jury-rigged steps will enable people to get between sets of rails safely.
So what have you completed here? I see you're putting up the, is that optimizers or is that just wires?
These are the optimizers. Jack started in on that, and he's got a little sheet of paper that's telling him how it all works. Hold still, I'll show you.
Okay. Has it been raining here?
Not since about 7 a.m. The roof dried off pretty quickly. So Jack built this so he can kind of tell which row the panels go on and how the optimizers get strung. And I don't really know what that means, but we've been able to call up to him how to go in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels, 6 rows or whatever they are, sections, and how far up. Because some things are upside down and some things are upside right. Mm-hmm. So this is Jack's coding for, I guess, how to run those optimizers. I think the goal was to get the optimizers on today, and we're just a little behind.
Okay. To just talk about what you're doing.
Sure. Let me come down first.
Okay.
So what we're doing now is installing the optimizers. There's one of these black boxes under each solar panel, and they will do the maximum power point tracking, it's called, as well as being able to monitor each individual panel's production. And we're creating strings of them. Some of the strings are going to be 12 panels long, some of them are 11 panels long, and some of them are only, I think one of them is 10 panels long. There'll be 8 strings altogether. The strings are additive, so they're adding the power that's produced by each solar panel and each optimizer together to increase the voltage, increase the power on each string. So each of the panels in the string will add to each other. And so we got to wire them correctly to create the strings. Yeah.
So what is the point of optimizers? How do they help?
So early on in the solar industry, like 40 years ago, they discovered the solar panels have a variable amount of voltage and amps that they put out depending on the sun intensity. And the multiplier of those two things is the power. And we want to maximize power. And so you can, with some little electronic magic that I wish I understood, you can manage the trade-off between voltage and amps. Mm-hmm. And that's what the optimizers is doing, is tracking the curve that these solar cells have to maximize the power.
So how does that help, for example, if there is a cloud covering half of the roof? How does it, because usually in a string system, right, the whole thing, it doesn't make any power if that happens.
Right.
So how do the optimizers help in that situation?
So they reduce that impact. If
7/16
there's a
needs to be deeper.
cloud over a portion of a string, as long as the panels that are still exposed can collect enough voltage to keep the inverter going, it will still produce power. Without the optimizers, it's more likely that the voltage would drop too far and the inverter would have to shut down.
Okay. And then I saw, George, he showed us your plan for the optimizers, the strings, and he showed that from the right side going to the left, they're going to be straight horizontal, and then over here you're going to have them going doing little twists.
Yeah, so
So why does that happen?
the way this design worked out is we have 18 columns of 5 rows to 90 panels, but we have 8 strings.
Okay.
So not all the strings could just be in a line. So we've got 5 strings on the west end that just bring themselves all the way over. But then we had to combine some rows on the west end into a single string. So we'll make the top 2 rows a single string, and then the next 2 rows are 2 strings, and then the bottom row and portion of the row above it makes the 3rd string.
Is it because the strings have to be somehow balanced, like each row has to be balanced in some sort of way? Is that the reason? So like you didn't have enough of them going this way, right?
So there's a design tool that came with this Solar Edge product.
Okay.
It's an online tool that the installers get, and it tells you the optimum string length to match with each of the inverters. And so it gave us 8 strings of this, either 10, 11, or 12 panels out of that tool, design tool.
So it's the optimizers are optimized in a string.
Well, they're optimizing the voltage versus power trade-off
Right.
for each string.
Okay. So today you guys are gonna. Yesterday you finished these.
We got the last
rails.
rail on this morning. We did three rails this morning.
So it took that long, the
Yeah.
whole day yesterday and even today.
Yeah, it was very hot yesterday. So we
So
didn't-
today you guys are finishing these optimizers,
That's the
hopefully.
goal. Yep. Well, we'll get the optimizers on today. We'll get them hopefully wired together properly. Then we've got to bring the ends of each string with additional home run wire, it's called,
Okay.
down to this corner. And we're going to have a bundle of each of them in 3 bundles go in conduit over the edge of the roof. So we've got the conduit partially assembled
On that side.
to go over the west side of the roof and through the wall into the building. From the 4th rail, they go like this one. So they hang below the rail. The metal flat part is the flat with the rail, so the black box is underneath it.
Yeah, so we're just mimicking.
Right. So you can just take from this 4th one all the way to the end and just place them roughly in the same spot as the 1, 2 below.
4th rail, I can get started and make them look like this.
Yep.
They're pointing downhill.
Yep.
And that's your whole upside down side to the scenario.
Yeah, so I got these 3 that are upside down. The rest are right side up on the 4th rail.
Alright. Move it over here.
Yeah.
Watch this, Olga. If I don't throw Jack off, it's going to be like Spidey-Man.
Yeah, now you got to be careful about not trapping yourself on any wire. Oh, hold on. Not working?
Say that aloud when the video is going. I need just a hair deeper on my side.
Okay, there's a deep socket here on this one. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure.
It was darn close.
Okay. We got to take those 3 off
All right.
because they were the bottom ones are the functions for that rail. Just keep going. I'll come up and get them off.
I'll take them off. What do I need to know differently for the next?
It's perfect for the row above it. But, so each pair of rails is a panel, and those 3 panels already had the optimizers upside down.
Oh, so I just need to move them up to here.
I think that's right, but I need to check the design.
You better. You said 4th rail when we talked about it.
Yep, and I meant starting where you are now, not where I had already put the 3.
Oh, offsetting. Gotcha.
My mistake.
Okay, so if I take these 3 and just slide them and go that way, we should be in good shape?
Perfect.
Okay, I can do that.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Got to get it level.
How can you tell if it's level?
There's a little bubble level there. It's got to be inside the circle. Okay, now we just got to get it north-south. And still level, that's always a problem. The question we get the most often is how do I know if my location is good for solar? So there are 2 big things you've got to answer in that process. One of them is about the orientation, and the other one is about shading. So when we talk about orientation, we mean 2 factors. We need tilt level, facing up and down, and then we need azimuth, which is orientation towards south. So in the northern hemisphere, we want our solar panels facing south because that's where the sun is the majority of the time. So azimuth is, if I'm facing west, then my azimuth is toward the east and so forth all the way around. So we want exactly, for the perfect location, we want 180 degrees azimuth or exactly south facing. And then the tilt varies with the season. So you might want to have an adjustable tilt array, and some people sell that, but that's a lot of extra money and it's a mechanical thing to break down. So most people don't bother with a tilt or a mechanical thing that changes the azimuth. So the most obvious thing to mount solar panels on is your roof. And that's the key question. Is your roof south facing? And what's its tilt?
Yeah, sounds good.
If you're not installing solar panels on a roof, you can install them on a ground mount, it's called. And ground mounts you can set up almost always to be exactly south. And in our area, the optimum tilt is about 30 degrees. Somewhere in the 30 to 25, 22 degrees is optimal for our weather. It does vary by location. Okay, the second factor is shading. So how do you know if your location is shaded or not? When you look at it at any one day of the year, the sun is going to be at a different height in the sky, both location east-west and different height toward the zenith or toward the horizon based on what time of day and what day of the year it is, what season. But we have a device called a solar Pathfinder that was invented by a mathematician about 30 or 40 years ago. And it allows us to make a single measurement at a location and predict the shading at that location for the whole year. It's got an isomorphic grid. It's a little hard to see with the glare probably, so I'll put my hand over it. And that isomorphic grid is reflecting the hours of the day, starting in the morning here on the east side, and different hours of the day all the way across to the west side. And then the lines that go left to right are different months of the year. So the bottom line is June, and the very top line is December. And the different ones in between are the 6 months on each direction. And there's a little number. You probably can't see it on the phone, but each little number represents the percentage of the solar energy for that day that will occur during that hour. And if we were take a picture of it directly above the grid, we could then get a reflection of the sky over top of the grid in the little plastic dome. And that shadowing of that reflection we can see in the reflection, we can then take a digital pen and sketch out what the shadow is on the top of the grid. And then we know the parts of the day and every month of the year, what's going to be shaded at this location where the device is.
And where the sun is going to be as well.
And then the opposite is true for the non-shaded parts of the grid. And then you can use an online modeling tool or more fancy modeling tool you can pay for to find out for each month of the year what's the solar energy in your area based on 20 years of past weather at your location. And then you know what percentage to take of that for each month to sum up the energy you can collect on a solar panel at this location for the whole year.
Can we tell what time it is by the Pathfinder right now?
Not really. We'd have to get a totally vertical or east-west projection to make a shadow and to make it into a sundial. This is pretty close, but it's not oriented right.
Right, because of this, right?
Yeah,
so it would need to be a little bit more turned and then even over here. Right, so based on this thing, approximately it's 11 o'clock, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Right?
It's 11 o'clock solar time.
Solar time.
Which is not equivalent to our clocks. Because we use daylight savings time in the summer.
Oh, right.
And we use time zones, which are not based on solar time, except sometimes at the exact eastern end of the time zone. So it can be anywhere, the solar time can be anywhere from 60 minutes or more off for each time zone.
Between 16 minutes and what? What is the maximum? An hour?
Some time zones and some locations are very wide, more than an hour wide.
Okay.
It just depends on the politics of drawing the time zone.
Right. And also by this Pathfinder, we can tell what season of the year it is, right? Because the sun is high, so the sun is basically on this grid, on the bottom of the grid.
Right, it's on the June or almost July, which is tomorrow's July.
Right. And then in the winter, for example, in December, the sun is going to start out over here in this corner and then go through.
Right.
It's going to have a shorter amount of time in the sky.
Yep, it doesn't have the full set of hours on the grid.
Okay.
There are fewer hours.
So can we tell? Oh, I could see some shadows. So for example, Jack is standing over here.
I can stand over here and pretend I'm a tree.
Right. And I could see the shadow that Jack makes. So if we were to place solar panels on this spot, Jack would create a shadow approximately in the first half of the day. And throughout, basically the warm months, so from summer to fall, right?
Right.
And even spring.
But
But in the winter,
east. I'm too far to the east to interfere with the sun in the winter.
right? In the winter, the sun is going to be able to.
It's further south, so it doesn't rise in the east as much. It rises in the southeast instead of the full east.
Great. Visa, do you have any questions for Jack?
I don't know.
Jim, why don't you tell us what you're doing?
I wish I knew. I'm trying to thread the feed wires that connect all the panels to the main panel downstairs through some conduit. The difficulty is threading it through the conduit. That's the thing we're doing.
What is the conduit?
It's that plastic piece you see under the rail here. It goes over the edge.
Oh, I see it.
Threaded
It's this
two of
one.
them already. And we're about to thread the last one.
So you have to put it through it?
Yep.
Into it, right? Like it goes.
Threading a needle.
Okay. Is this the last of the wiring that's left?
Yeah.
Do you need some water? Yeah? I can bring some water.
I can.
Stress moment.
Right now we're installing the first top row of panels to the barn, and we've got to make sure that they're all square. So there's 18 panels per row and 5 rows total. And our goal is to get the top row completed today and square. So we're slowly moving the panels up into position, and these guys up here are making sure that the installation goes well, that they're zip tying all the wires properly underneath for the code, and that it's square. So that's what we're up to, and we're sweating a lot.
So you think you're gonna get only the first row today, right?
Yeah,
Everything.
and tomorrow is the big volunteer day with a telescopic lift to get all the panels up, although this is going quite well.
Okay.
It'll just speed things up for us.
I'm curious to see the
90
lift.
panels total is what it's going to be.
Uh-huh. And you have them all here already, right?
There's 2 more pallets we got to bring over.
Hi, Mama.
Hello.
So I saw a panel over there and it's a little bit scratched. Is that panel unusable?
No, it'll be fine.
There's just a little bit of dirt on it.
Okay. So it really has to be damaged for it not to work.
The glass is tempered glass, and if the tempered glass breaks, you can't use it.
Solar panels are pretty durable. You could stand on one of these.
Okay.
But don't.
But
might take it apart.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
What are you doing, Jack?
I'm just cleaning things up a little bit.
Pick up the side that's
Those guys are doing the real work.
Did you get to use the harness at any one point?
Well, used it a lot, but not having to use it.
Yeah.
That's the good thing. We don't want to have to use them, but we want to have them in case we need them. I need to go do a voltage measurement, right?
You will be ready for a voltage measurement by the time you get to wherever.
Well, you've already passed the first string.
Yeah. We're just installing. We're not.
Yeah,
we don't need to
but
set-
I don't want you to, if you have to back up, it's not a good thing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So let me go do that real quick.
We'll keep.
Would you like to describe what made you want to put solar panels on your roof?
I'm not sure I wanted to put solar panels on my roof. I wanted to build a rack to put solar panels on. And while I was doing that, I built a barn. But I'm not going to be working here 25 or 30 years. So it'll be up to the foundation to figure out what the best use of it is.
And the building is going to go to the foundation?
That's my hope. Yeah, that's my present plan. So that really came forth first. Well, what would you do if you wanted to put a roof up there and solar panels, and how would you design this?
Mm-hmm.
And so you see the lopsided roof outside. This roof is 50 feet and the back roof is 12 feet.
It's a huge building. It's
It is.
perfect for solar because it's
Yeah.
just a lot of space.
This isn't quite as fancy, and you'll notice I don't have any windows yet.
Yeah.
But what I'm driven to do is get this solar thing done and get that working.
Windows, is that the next step?
I'll probably put some windows in, yeah. And that looks like kind of a mess over there. That's going to be the power entrance. But it's going to be a room. The ability to take guests in there and have them see that everything we've painted red is part of the solar, and so somehow to have diagrams and be able to trace what it is that's doing it, and to look at the meters and see how much it is and get some of the history of it.
Yeah, I would love to see how the
So
system will perform in a
Yeah.
year, you know, how much energy it will provide. But the electricity that it generates, it goes straight to the foundation? Or does it go through the grid and...
no, it goes through the grid at the moment.
Okay.
But I was talking to somebody the other day, Eric, and I said, how big a door, is a 4-foot door big enough to get batteries in? He said,
4-foot door.
well, you don't have any batteries. I said, well, we may. And he said, well, I just replaced my lead acid batteries in his mountain cabin that's off the grid.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I bought 3 new batteries. They weigh 72 pounds apiece. So he said, you don't need to worry about driving a forklift in with the batteries.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a battery operated drill and you weigh it, and it's 20 years old, it'll weigh 3 times as much as the one you'd buy now that'll do twice as much work.
Right.
complete and voltage right.
The risk paid off.
All right. Roll the dice. Do that. I need more bolts.
They're on the table. Or I have a few, but
Somebody dropped out of my pocket. But they ain't in there anymore.
Maybe you have a kitchen sink.
so we're attaching the solar panels to the rails with these little bolts. A really neat design. They got a little parallelogram on the end that fits in the channel on the rail. So when we screw this big bolt or nut with a big washer built onto it down, it tightens in the channel and locks in. And then these are special washers that have these little prominences on them, so they break the anodization on the panel, on the frame of the aluminum frame of the panel, and that gives it a bonding path from the panel all the way to ground. So if there's an electrical fault or a lightning strike, it'll go to ground instead of electrocute somebody. That's the biggest safety thing with solar panels, is making sure you have a good ground.
And you said that these, what are they called? Skewers?
Well, I call them prominences, but they're little teeth that just break the surface aluminum on the frame of the panel, so that they make a good electrical connection into the aluminum frame.
I see.
We got 36 panels up so far. Two fifths done.
Nice.
3 more rows to go.
And you think you're gonna finish today?
I don't know. It's getting very hot.
Right. It's either raining or it's hot.
Yeah, and when it's too hot, I just can't do it. Some of these other guys are better at the heat than I am.
If you are going to put in the panels today, do you plan to turn on the system, or?
We can't turn it on other than a brief, we can't even turn it on because we don't have the electronics installed, the inverter itself. We're hiring an electrician to do that. So we can't do anything more than confirm that each of the strings are correctly connected, and it can see all the inverters, all the optimizers in the string.
Cool.
Olga, you missed it. Danny. Hi, yeah, so everyone's gone. We finished at about 9:30 this morning. This is Friday morning, so that's like day 6, I think. We started on Sunday. We got the last row of panels on this morning, and you can see everything's all set up in there. We did all the zip tying to make sure no wires were touching the roof. It all looks good. They've tested each of the different circuits, or whatever Jack calls those pieces, to make sure that each panel is functioning and hooked into the inverters appropriately. So then we took down the scaffolding, we've cleaned up all of our mess, picked up all of our scraps, and everyone's gone home to relax.
Perfect. So when is the turning on day?
So I believe that's July 23rd or 27th when they'll be here to turn it on. So Blair will come next week and hook everything up, do all the internal heavy lifting on the wiring stuff.
Blair from Bucelli Solutions.
Solutions, correct.
No, so we ran all I think there are 6 or 8 different setups where the wires run in and they go into those cables, and then it's all hooked up in the attic of this building.
Oh, on the second floor.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Do you want to try to climb in your skirt?
Yes, I am. I'm going to climb. I'm impressed how Jim was able to push the wires through those tubes.
So just a little tip, we had too many wires going into the tube and they got stuck, and so we had to pull them out a little bit, and we dumped a whole bunch of suntan lotion on, and then we were able to jam it back through, and using the suntan lotion as a lubricant, we were able to get the wires.
Perfect. Very practical. I can.
Morning.
So you're comfortable?
Yep. So we're now on the inside of the building on the second floor, and we're gonna check out all the wires that came out of that whole solar panel system and where they all meet.
So as you can see, we were just outside and we saw 3 U's coming in. These are those PVC pipes we saw coming in, and they're all labeled. They have the blue tape on them, 2A, 2C, 2B, M and F, male and female, so they know which one is feeding it.
This is actually where all of these come out over here, right?
Yes.
And then they go into the building.
Yep. So Jack calls that 1-3 or 3-1.
Are you excited to finish already?
This is awesome. Yeah. So this is one of those things, right, where it was a lot of work. And
Yeah.
At first, I was pretty skeptical about the idea of having to get on the roof. But by the time we had the scaffolding built, and then we had the first set of rails, and then we made that little homemade laddery thing that we hung from the rails, and with the safety harnesses and the ropes, it feels okay as you go. It's like this cumulative process going up the roof.
You can probably see that Jack has experience with these things, because like, you know, when I think of installing a solar system, like I don't even know where to start, right?
Right.
But Jack had a plan for everything, right? Or did someone come in with the idea of the scaffolding and everything? Like, how did all of this come out?
Yeah, no, I think that was Jack. I mean, he's been on enough projects, and I know Blair with the Buselli Solutions helped him with the different pieces of it. But so having had all that prior knowledge, and all of the volunteers from Seeds who came to help, they've helped on multiple projects, and many of them have their own solar installation. Yeah, and so the cool thing about this too was the team, because different people might show up different days, or different people might have different availabilities, but we were all able to, no matter who was here, figure out what needed to happen and work together as a team. And so that was really cool, because it wasn't like we had to wait on one person to do this or that. If one person was missing, someone else could fill in and get that next piece done.
So I can't wait to see the results, like a few months from now and then a year from now, and just to see how much the system generates and helps out in terms of like avoiding expenses, electricity expenses.
Yeah, we can't wait. So we think it's going to cover about 25% of our usage at the Highlights Foundation at the Retreat Center. So last year we spent a little over $20,000 in electricity. So
like
that's
5,000.
So that'll be nice to see that savings. And because of the volunteer labor, because we were able to acquire used solar panels, we were able to keep the costs low on the install.
Who did you get this used solar panels from?
I have no idea. My cousin sourced those. He thinks they must have come out of like an oil field in Texas or something, where they needed remote power for a short amount of time to do something. And then when they were done, they resold the panels.
That's really cool, because, you know, a lot of people mention the waste that sometimes comes from solar panels that are not ethically recycled, like, so basically just thrown out or something. So it's really cool that you guys were able to refurbish it and use it. Do you know, is it still, do you have a warranty for this system, or is
I have no idea. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Well, keep us updated on, you know,
bet.
the success of the system and how much it helps you. Any interesting things.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.